The first light of dawn stretched lazily over the rolling hills, casting a golden glow across the sprawling ranch. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass. Alone in the quiet, she hammered nails into weathered wooden posts, her hands already raw from the rough timber. Her arms ached, but she refused to stop. The fence needed finishing before the cattle wandered too far. Every plank she lifted felt heavier than the last, the old boards groaning under the strain. She paused for a moment, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, and looked across the pasture. The fence line curved along the edge of the property, sagging in places where storms had weakened the posts. She traced the path with her eyes, mentally marking where each new section had to go. Her determination was unwavering, yet the solitude pressed down on her, the silence of the ranch almost deafening. The low moans of distant cows were the only sound that reminded her she wasn't completely alone, but they weren't enough to stave off the feeling of isolation. A swirl of dust in the distance caught her eye. She squinted toward the horizon and saw a figure approaching on horseback, the rider's silhouette sharp against the rising sun. As he drew closer, she could make out a tall man, wearing dusty boots and a faded coat. Timber was balanced across his saddle, and his posture suggested strength and ease in the saddle. He rode with a calm confidence, yet there was a gentleness in the way he guided his horse, a kind of respect that made her instinctively lower the hammer for a moment. He dismounted smoothly, the horse stepping quietly on the soft dirt. Tipping his hat politely, he smiled, revealing eyes that were sharp but kind. "That's heavy work for one person," he said, his voice calm and warm. "Let me help." Pride and stubbornness flared within her. She shook her head, attempting to mask her relief. "I've got it under control," she replied, though her voice lacked conviction. The man's eyes, steady and understanding, didn't push further. Instead, he simply set the timber down on the ground, rolling up his sleeves as if to say, "I'm not here to judge. I'm here to work with you." Hesitating only a moment longer, she nodded. Together, they lifted the heavy boards, coordinating silently as if they had worked together many times before. Each beam was a test of strength and endurance, yet there was something comforting in having another presence beside her. The morning sun climbed higher, painting the landscape with a soft, golden light. She caught herself stealing glances at him, strong hands carefully gripping the timber, boots sinking slightly into the earth with each step, and a faint, easy smile that made the labor seem lighter. As they worked, the quiet between them was comfortable, almost companionable. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the mingling scents of hay, timber, and earth. For the first time in a long while, she felt a shift within her, not just relief at the help, but a flicker of something new. Hope, perhaps, or maybe the first spark of trust. The ranch, once lonely and overwhelming, suddenly felt less like a burden and more like a place of possibility, especially with someone willing to share the weight of the work at dawn. The morning sun climbed steadily, painting the ranch in soft amber hues. Sweat streaked her dusty cheeks as they lifted another heavy plank into place. She realized she had underestimated how much easier the work would feel with him there. His presence was quiet but strong, like the steady rhythm of the ranch itself. Every movement seemed effortless, yet deliberate. He placed the timber carefully, nudged posts into alignment, and adjusted nails without a single complaint. She found herself watching him, fascinated by the way his hands moved, skilled and confident, each motion precise yet gentle. "Here," he said, handing her a plank with a small grin. "This one's tricky. It wants to fall to the left." She caught it, steadying it with both hands, and nodded. "Thanks," she muttered, breathless from lifting the heavy boards. He chuckled softly, the sound blending with the morning birdsong. "You're strong," he said simply, glancing at her arms, then looking away, modestly. She felt a heat rise to her cheeks and returned to her work, trying not to smile. The rhythm of hammering and lifting continued, punctuated by occasional laughter whenever a nail bent or a board slipped. He was patient with her, correcting her technique without condescension, and she realized how rare that was. Most people either bossed her around or assumed she couldn't manage on her own. But he worked beside her, side by side, as if they were equals, as if she mattered not because she needed help, but because her effort deserved respect. At one point, she stepped back to wipe the sweat from her brow. "I never thought building a fence could feel enjoyable," she admitted, letting herself smile genuinely for the first time that morning. He looked at her, eyebrows raised, and chuckled. Enjoyable. I'll take that as a compliment. Most people just complain about fences, especially at dawn. The wind carried the scent of hay, pine, and freshly turned soil, and the two of them worked in quiet harmony. She noticed how the sun glinted off his hair, how his eyes scanned the fence line with a careful precision that made her heart skip a beat without reason. There was a subtle energy between them, nothing overt, just a shared understanding that this morning, this work, was no longer hers alone. She didn't need to be afraid of asking for help, or of letting someone see her struggle. Hours passed, yet the work never felt grueling. Each post secured, each board nailed, seemed to bring more than progress. It brought a sense of connection, a quiet camaraderie. She laughed when a board slipped and nearly smacked them both, and he caught it with ease, grinning. "We make a good team," he said. She nodded, feeling a surprising warmth spread through her chest. "Yeah, a good team," she agreed. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone on the ranch. With someone by her side, the work felt lighter, the morning brighter, and even the endless horizon seemed less daunting. Somewhere deep inside, she sensed that this simple act of sharing labor might be the start of something bigger, something unexpected, yet profoundly right. By midday, the fence was beginning to take shape, each section standing straighter and sturdier than the last. The sun was high now, warming the earth beneath their boots, and she could feel the ache in her arms fading, replaced by a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in weeks. He leaned casually against a post for a moment, watching her hammer the last nails into a particularly stubborn plank. "Not bad for a morning's work," he said with an easy grin. She wiped her hands on her jeans and smiled back, feeling lighter than she had all morning. Together, they adjusted the final boards, squaring posts with careful measurements. He noticed the small imperfections she had tried to hide, crooked nails, uneven beams, but didn't make her feel self-conscious. Instead, he offered quiet corrections and gentle guidance. "Try holding it this way," he said, demonstrating the angle, "and it'll go in smooth." She followed his lead, surprised at how easily the wood fit under her hammer. She felt a thrill of satisfaction, not only for finishing the work but for discovering how well they worked together. As they moved to inspect the fence line, she realized she was laughing more than she had in months. Every joke, every shared glance, carried a warmth that went beyond mere camaraderie. The way he paused to admire her work, the way he adjusted a post without a word, the subtle pride in his expression, it all made her heart beat a little faster. She had been alone on this ranch for too long, fighting against isolation and fatigue, and now she realized that having someone by her side made everything feel possible. "Looks solid," he said, running his hand along the top rail. "The cattle won't get through this." She nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "I couldn't have done it alone," she admitted softly. He met her gaze, and there was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. "You didn't have to," he replied, his tone quiet but sincere. That simple statement carried weight. It meant he saw her strength but also respected her limits, and she found herself wanting to trust him more than she had intended. The afternoon breeze stirred, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Birds flew overhead, their songs mingling with the distant lowing of the herd. They stood together for a moment, surveying the long stretch of newly built fence. It was more than just a line of timber and nails, it was proof that she didn't have to face her challenges alone. Something unspoken passed between them, a quiet bond formed through sweat, effort, and shared laughter. Finally, he gathered the last tools and placed them on the ground beside her. "You did well today," he said, eyes meeting hers with a steady intensity. "Stronger than I expected." She smiled, feeling warmth in more than just her arms. "Thanks for helping," she whispered. He gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that words weren't necessary. The fence was complete, the morning's labor behind them, yet the connection they had forged lingered in the air like the scent of fresh timber, strong, undeniable, and entirely new. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and violet. The freshly built fence gleamed softly in the fading light, stretching in a perfect line along the pasture, each post sturdy, each plank secure. She stepped back, brushing dirt and sweat from her hands, and took a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of solitude lift. The ranch still required endless work, but the morning's labor had reminded her that she didn't have to face it alone. He stood beside her, leaning lightly on the last post, his hat in hand, a relaxed smile on his face. "You did all the hard work," he said, his voice calm and steady, yet warm. "I just helped you carry the boards." She shook her head, smiling. "You helped more than you know. I couldn't have finished it myself." Their eyes met for a brief moment, and in that silence, there was a mutual acknowledgement of something deeper than mere gratitude. Something quiet, unspoken, had taken root. The wind shifted, ruffling her hair, carrying the scent of hay and pine across the pasture. He glanced around the ranch, then back at her. "The fence looks strong. The cattle are safe. You can finally take a breath." She laughed softly, the sound blending with the whisper of the evening breeze. "I will," she said, feeling the truth of her words in every tired muscle and every ache that now felt satisfying instead of burdensome. He mounted his horse slowly, yet lingered, holding the reins loosely. "I should be going," he said, though his tone hinted he didn't truly want to leave. "But, if you ever need help again, you know where to find me." She nodded, heart fluttering unexpectedly. "I do," she whispered. His eyes softened, and for a moment, the ranch seemed smaller, warmer, as if the wide open land had shrunk to the space between them. She watched him ride toward the horizon, dust trailing behind his horse. And yet, as he disappeared from view, a strange sense of hope lingered. The fence was more than wood and nails, it was a symbol of collaboration, trust, and unexpected friendship. She realized that mornings didn't have to be spent in silence anymore, that she could welcome help without feeling weak. There was a spark now, fragile but undeniable, that hinted at new possibilities. Turning back toward the house, she felt lighter, more capable. Each step across the pasture felt like a promise to herself, to work hard, yes, but also to allow connection, laughter, and companionship to enter her life. The ranch would always be a place of challenge, but now it was also a place of potential for shared work, shared burdens, and perhaps, in time, shared hearts. The sky deepened to a rich indigo, and the first stars began to appear. Alone yet not lonely, she touched the smooth wood of the fence one last time and smiled. Today had changed everything, and somewhere, just beyond the horizon, she sensed that this morning, this shared effort, this quiet bond, was only the beginning. The future of the ranch, and maybe of her heart, suddenly felt full of promise.